Welcome back everyone. We're now on to part 3 of my Christmas cake. This will actually be separated into 2 halves. First half I will marzipan the cake, and then second half, which I'll do in about a week's time, I will actually then ice the cake. Generally I tend to do this myself because often I'm a bit late. I often do it within the last week of Christmas, which I wouldn't recommend. Traditionally they say do it a good few weeks before Christmas, so you give your marzipan a week to dry, and then a good week at least for the icing to kind of set a little bit, although I personally like mine quite soft, so it's just personal choices. Either way will be delicious.
And do our viewers have to wear the same hat as you want
Absolutely,
to do
this is compulsory wear. We have Christmas lounge suit that I bought. Me and my mum bought matching ones for Christmas Day because we're really sad. And I've got a huge selection of these things, which I had from when I used to do Meals on Wheels, and which is like a food delivery service for the pensioners in the UK. And we used to do a meal once a month, and at Christmas time...
You look like a Christmas tree.
Exactly, it's just my thing. But here we go, we'll start. So here's my cake in the box. It's been in the box now, how many weeks? What, 3 weeks, do you think?
Yep.
I've been feeding it occasionally. I've fed it maybe 3 times. Here she is. When I've actually marzipanned it, I will actually put it back onto the lid of my container, and then I will put the top back on to give it some protection. If you want to put it on a nice silver or gold board ready for Christmas, then you can do that as well. But just for my purposes, I'm going to do this for now. So here we go. I will pop her onto there.
Or is it her now, is it?
Oh, oh yes. Oh yes, there she is. First of all, I will take my marzipan. Now, I'm a bit lazy, so I tend to buy it ready-made in a pack like this in the UK. It weighs 500 grams, but you can obviously make your own. If you wanted to make your own paste, then send Francesco a message and he said he'll pop you a recipe on, but you should be able to find something online as well. But sometimes you have to go with these. Now, my lovely husband bought this for something else that he never made, and he bought a white one. Not a problem.
That looks yellow to me.
You can buy... No, if it was yellow, it would be really deep yellow. I like them both. My mum will complain because she likes the yellow one. And I normally start by popping some icing sugar down so it doesn't get stuck to the surface. I've divided mine into sort of a 40-60 split. I will take the 40% piece, which I will then roll and cut into a circle for the top, and the other piece I will then roll out and do for the sides. Okay, I will admit I'm getting a touch warm in my lovely top.
You do look flushed.
Here we go. It's quite firm, so you just have to be strong.
So is that room temperature then?
It's been room temperature, yes, it's been in the cupboard and it is room temperature.
But it needs to be room temperature?
Yeah, definitely not too cold.
Okay.
Here we go, let's get going. As you can see, I'm aiming for that sort of diameter, so I'm not far off here.
So that will need to cover the top.
Yeah, so I happen to have this trusty plate that I know is the perfect size for the top.
Fits perfectly.
So I will be aiming to roll my marzipan out that big. Let's have another look. There we go. I'm happy with that.
It's perfect.
Now I will run around with my knife. Mind your fingers, everyone. And that is the top ready to go on. There are some pieces left over, which if you're very creative, you can fashion into holly berries, pieces of holly, robins, whatever you like to go on the top. I'm not able to do that, so I tend to put them to one side and I'll eat those later. Maybe I'll share them with Francesco.
Maybe not.
Maybe.
I never remember you sharing any marzipan with me.
I might have done a little bit on occasion. Here we go. Now back to my other piece. I tend to cut it in half. So this piece of marzipan I will be rolling out this way so I can pop it around the cake like this. And here we go again.
So you're going to be doing it in 2 halves?
I am. Francesco said to me earlier, do you need a different size piece of marzipan depending on the cake? And I said no. you just make it a bit thicker if it's on a smaller cake.
On the other hand, if this is half a kilo and you're making the smaller cake, there'll be plenty for the smaller cake as well anyway.
Yeah, that's true, but then you would obviously then have thicker, you'd have thicker marzipan.
Nothing
which
wrong
would
with
be
that.
lovely, nothing wrong with that at all. Now, let's have a little bit of a judge. What do you think? I think I'm nearly there. A little bit longer. Obviously we want flat edges, so I'll start off by squaring up the top.
You don't need a ruler?
No, Francesco. This is Julie's cooking world. We don't use rulers. And you can see, you're going to be horrified, look dear.
Oh wow.
This is my judgment on the height of the cake.
Carry on.
Here we go everyone. So I want to go about there.
If it works, it's fine.
If it works, of course it'll work. There we go. I'll make another one of those and then I'll get on to the apricot jam. And now we'll square this one up again. The next stage is melting some apricot jam, or maybe marmalade if you haven't got any apricot jam. I tend to put a good tablespoon into a small container and I pop mine in the microwave. 10 to 20 seconds, just have a little look. If it starts to bubble, give it a stir. And the idea is that you're melting it so it's more liquidy and you're able to then brush it on top of the cake. Mine was in the microwave for 20 seconds and as you can see, it's nice and liquidy and all ready to pop on the cake. The idea is to brush all over the cake with your apricot jam. This forms a type of glue really, so the marzipan sticks.
I see. So you need to apply that marzipan shortly after the jam.
Yeah, I cut the marzipan out first and now I'm coating the cake.
So you need to be quite sticky.
Yeah, it's a bit of a messy job, but someone's got to do it.
Even better if it's messy.
Okay, I'm just layering a bit more on top. Always gives a nice flavour. So we'll take our first piece of marzipan and we will wrap it around the cake. Look at that, perfect. Give it a good push so it stays in position. Now I'll use a little more on the edges so it sticks to each other. I'll straighten the edges up, ready for the cake, and hope it fits. Oh, I've got plenty. That's actually a little bit too much. You could overlap, but I don't generally, so I'll just pop that off. Now, as you can see, this piece is slightly shorter, this is longer. It doesn't really matter. Give it a good push together at the joins. Make sure it's securely attached. And then just using the top of my brush, I will just brush that top edge to make sure that this piece fits on nicely. Final piece of marzipan, here we go. Onto the top.
Magic.
Yeah. Now, just have a little pinch. If you find little pieces like this, you can see I've missed a piece or my circle wasn't perfect.
Or you can patch it up.
You can just patch it up.
How about these pieces here then? What do you do there? Or doesn't
I'm just
matter?
gently stretching this top marzipan and then you can push it over the edge until it forms a seal. Can you see?
All right, yeah.
The basic reason you put marzipan on is to protect the icing from discolouring if it comes into contact with the cake. So this is quite an important part, but ultimately it will taste delicious regardless.
Surely another purpose is because you want to make sure that you taste the marzipan as well.
The basic reason you do have the marzipan is to create a barrier between the icing, which would very easily go, which would discolour. But obviously it's an English tradition to have marzipan in your cake. Okay, are we happy with that? Can you see any gaps?
It looks good to me.
Now no, actually I think I will leave it there. I have got a tendency to pop a little icing on and just make sure that the top is nice and dry, particularly in areas which are a bit wetter on the edges where I've put the jam.
Well,
The idea is this next part is that are you recording, yeah?
Yeah.
The next part of the process is that you leave the cake in the air. So I will actually what I will do, if you can zoom in, Francesca, is I will get a little something here, so there's a little air coming in underneath, but that it's covered up from the dust, etc. And then I will leave that in a cool, dark room for a good week, and then I will come back and ice it later on. You could obviously pop some tin foil over the top, just something to give it some protection, but the idea is do not put it in a Tupperware container and seal it, because then it will kind of sweat and it will still be sticky, it won't dry out. The idea is we're trying to dry out the marzipan. And this is what I'm going to use to create my slight gap on between my lid and the base of my cake. 1, 2 and 3 around here.
They're little lids from...
They're lids from the...
marmalade.
actually, well, they're lids actually from the mincemeat.
Okay.
And then if I pop them on top, you can see there's a little gap underneath, and then I'll pop it into a dark, cold place. I've got 2 choices, conservatory or under my stairs in my cupboard. I normally put it under the stairs in the cupboard. So don't forget, you only need a small gap between the base of your cake and the lid, just to allow a little bit of air to circulate. We'll continue with the cake in about a week's time. It will still be part of this video, and we'll ice the cake then. Okay, see you soon. And I'm back. Editing is a wonderful thing. We've been to Sicily and back. And here I am, as if no time has passed at all. You'll see the marzipan cake is here, as I left it. It's been in my cupboard for the week and it's dried out nicely. And now on to the royal icing, which you basically need egg whites, icing sugar, and if you like a softer icing, which we do, I do, you need a little glycerin. So I'll show you how you make it now. So far, I've separated 3 eggs, whites and yolks. Now, you might think I'm being a little bit over worried, but if you get even the tiniest amount of yolk into the white, it won't set and go as hard as it needs to. So I always err on the side of caution and have lots of bowls. So here we go.
So each egg you do it individually?
Each egg I do individually, and then I just pop him in there to make sure he's still whole, which he is. And as you can see, no yolk at all in there. And I'll pop that into the bowl there. Now I'm going to use my lovely gadget, which will save me ages and lots of stress when I'm whisking. Now you have to make sure that your bowl, and in this case, this belongs to my wonderful machine, is nice and dry. There can't be any grease in it at all. So give it a wipe, make sure it's clean and grease-free. You could obviously use an electric hand whisk, or if you wanted to go old school, you could use a whisk, which is probably what our grandparents, great-grandparents did.
Or a handheld one.
I mean a balloon whisk. Oh, of which?
Oh, it's in the dishwasher.
Oh, right.
I know what you mean now.
You could use a hand whisk. However, my lovely gadget has got this, so we'll be popping this on. There we go. First thing you do is you take your egg whites, which have freshly been separated from the yolks, and you pop it into your bowl where you'll be whisking. So the next ingredient you need is icing sugar. You need to sieve it, so this will just take a few moments. I'm sure Francesca will put some nice background music on this, but I'll just sieve my icing sugar. Now you need to sieve it into a big bowl, because you add it into your egg whites 1 spoon at a time. It's important to sieve it so that you get rid of all of the lumps. As you can see, this icing sugar has got plenty in there. And then it just makes it a nice, soft, smooth consistency for when you spread it on the cake and you don't have any nasty lumps. Got another new toy. I'm going to use him.
He's from Sicily.
Yeah. I got some lovely Christmas bits when we were over there. As always, the quantities will be listed in the contents of this recipe for the 6 and the 9-inch cakes. This icing sugar was actually kept outside in Francesca's kitchen, hence why it's maybe got a little bit damp and gone a bit lumpy, so it's not normally this hard. But here we go. That literally took me, what, 3-4 minutes maybe? There we go. Look how lovely it is. Here you can see it's all nicely sifted and ready to add to the whites. The first thing you do is you stir in the icing sugar to the egg whites, and the idea is that you stir them slowly until they're all incorporated. I'm actually going to do that by putting my machine on a really slow whisk, and it will do basically the same thing. You can do it by hand if you prefer. So I will add 1 spoon at a time. This is a boring bit. You might want to turn this off, Francesca, and come back when I've added it all. I'll show you when something exciting is happening. And as you can see, it's coming together nicely, nice and thick. First things first, a little bit more of my cup of tea, well deserved. Now at this point, you either turn on your machine or your electric hand whisk, or indeed if you're going old school, you get this out, but you do need to beat it really quite well for a good 10 minutes. You're aiming for the peaks, you're aiming for it to really come together and firm up, and then create, if you could, about 2-inch soft peaks. So you really want it to hold a peak for about that height, and then you'll know that it's ready to go on the cake. So I'll see you in about 10 minutes. I forgot to say, if you like a nice soft icing, there we go. If you like a nice soft icing like me, they recommend that you put a couple of teaspoons of glycerin in. Now you can pretty much do that at any point, but I'm going to put mine in now and then it will be in nicely. It just helps keep it a little bit creamier, but if you like a nice firm, hard icing on top of your Christmas cake, then obviously don't put this in. See you in 10 minutes. Right, we're going to have a look. We're actually about 6 or 7 minutes in at the moment, but because my machine is really powerful, I think it's nearly done. So let's have a look, Francha. Are you ready to see?
Yep.
Ooh, look at that. Can you see how thick it is? Lovely.
Can you overdo it?
Well, I've never managed to overdo it.
Okay.
I will admit in the past I've actually used my electric sort of hand whisk, and to be honest you get really tired with that. But with this I obviously just walked away and did some washing up and came back and thought, oh my goodness, it's really nearly done. Now let's have a look. Just going to shake that off a bit. Now if you remember, we're looking for sort of a 2-inch peak, so if Francesco can come in there, I'll show you what we're after. Can you see that when I pull the icing up, it's happy to sit there and it's really lovely and firm?
Perfect.
This is what we're looking for, so I'll finish it now. Next you need to find yourself a nice plate or a covered board. We tend to use these in the UK a lot. I've actually got a lovely plate that we purchased in Sicily. We could have used that, but I'm quite partial to the covered boards. I've chosen this one so it fits into my Tupperware container. What I will do is when the cake is ready, it will stand on the bottom and the top will cover it up, and it will keep it clean and nice and moist for the rest of the season. A simple trick to stick your cake to the base so that it doesn't slide is to put a little blob of your icing. Simple as that.
That is really clever.
Women are geniuses, in case you didn't realise, dear. Okay, if you can look at the cake, you'll see how nice and dried out it is. It feels really nice and firm. So I'll remove it and pop him on. Oh, he's a him now. He was a her earlier on.
Yes, it's changed.
I'll pop her
since
in the centre of my plate. There we are. Now this is the fun bit. You basically have several options. I am a bit of a messy Christmas scene type of an icing girl, so I will literally cover my cake. I will try and make it look like a Christmas scene, and then I have lots of little Santas and things like that which I will pop on top. If, however, you're more creative, you might want to do a smooth one. You can then have a ribbon around the outside. You could just have a snow scene top. It's up to you. Sky's the limit. My sister does some beautiful cakes, but I'm not as creative, I'm afraid. So mine is always basic. I also love thick icing, so I always put it all on and just hope that there's lots on the piece I eat. Oh, can you hear it?
I can.
Look how lovely and shiny it is. That's the glycerin. Okay, as you can see, I've probably got two-thirds on there. If you have a palette knife, or indeed a good sized knife, something not sharp obviously, the idea is that you can smooth it over, cover the whole cake first of all, and then you can make your peaks. Oh, it's almost foamy. It's a bit foam-like. Lovely and smooth. Okay, so I'm just smoothing it out. Some will go down around the sides of the cake, and that is obviously good too, as we want the whole thing covered in the icing. If you happen to have something like we have at the bottom, which I can then turn the whole thing round, by all means use that. But to be fair, for many years I just turned the board. I'm sure you'll manage. The idea is to try not to get too much on the board, because obviously that will then get wasted, but it is a bit of a fiddly job. As you can see, I'm not the most brilliant person at putting on icing. One thing I do know though is that you need to bring your icing right down to the bottom so there's no gap.
That looks pretty good to me.
Well, that's because you're used to my wild Christmas snow effect.
But I like a rustic looking cake.
I know. Well, I do. Just as well, really. That's all I'm capable of. There we go. I tend to just do a small area at a time. You can always layer it up later, but obviously initially I'm just trying to make sure it's all covered. Even though I do a snow scene, I do tend to put a big ribbon around the outside as well.
You missed a bit.
Oh, thanks, my love. Like I hadn't noticed there was a
Oh, I
great
see.
hole.
So now you know what it feels like to be
Oh,
on the other side of the
never.
camera.
Yeah. So as you can see, the cake is all covered. It's got a lovely thick layer all over. If you fancy it, you can use your palette knife and smooth the edge. I quite like it to look rustic like this, so it looks, as I said before, quite natural. Not trying to make it perfect. Now I have got quite a big blob of the icing left, as you'll see, and I will now put that on top to fashion my snow scene. Best way I've found of doing this is to use a fork. I'll just spread it about a bit. Okay, trusty fork. Oh, look at it. Amazing. I know you're all amazed with my technique.
I like it.
It's simple. As you can see, if you're lucky enough to get the piece in the middle, you've really lucked out because that's the really thick
It's
icing.
very effective, isn't it?
It is. There we go. I'm happy. Actually, I normally go around the outside as well. I'm happy with that. And now I'm going to choose what to put on the cake. Big decision. We have a few hundred various Merry Christmases, a few Santas. And I bought this when the children were young, probably when my boys were young, because they used to love trains. And I always put him on the top. So let's pop him on first. He's a must. There he is.
So you're best to do all of these when it's still soft so that they effectively cement in.
Yeah, I think so, yes. This won't actually go really hard, but obviously it will crack it a little bit if you add them later, but by all means you can do what you like, it's not a problem. We often have her in there.
Oh yes, it's an
Got a
angel.
little Christmas tree there, look. And Robin, obviously, it's a must. Oh, sorry, my man. Let's just give him a little wipe. He's a must. We'll pop him in there like that. And some carolers. There they are.
Wonderful.
Now I'm quite happy with that. When it's a bit dried out later on, before I get it out sort of at Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, I will then wrap around my piece of ribbon, which I have here. It's like a velvety ribbon, and I will pop a small needle or pin into the join, obviously making sure you take it out when you serve, just to hold it in place until we need it, but that just will finish it off. So what I will do now is just gently wipe round and get rid of the residue icing because I am a bit mucky. And then I'll pop this in our fridge, middle shelf, somewhere where you've got space really, or if you had a really nice cool room, like a cool conservatory, somewhere like that. I'll probably leave it in overnight and then I'll assess. You're just hoping that the cake obviously holds together. If you start to, if your icing is still sort of slipping off the cake a little bit, then by all means leave it in a bit longer. But really overnight, 12 hours should be enough, and you'll just see it'll still look like this, but I'll be aware it's a bit firmer. And then I'm going to pop the cake on the base. I will pop that on top. I will seal it, pop it down, and then I will pop it in my understairs cupboard because that's nice and cool and dark. And I will leave it until we want it at Christmas. And quite often we don't actually touch ours till Christmas night, but it will all be ready, and that's one job off my list. So here we are, we're now 2 weeks till Christmas. This is the perfect time to marzipan your cake, then leave it 6 or 7 days and then you can ice it. That gives it enough time to dry out before Christmas. Obviously, if you're like me and you leave it till the last minute, I've done it many a time and done it all within the last week of Christmas, and it's still delicious. I've never had a problem. It's up to you. Well, that's me. I'm done now. That's the last of this episode with the Christmas cake. If you make it, we'd love to see some of your creations. Francesco's got a Tortellino Time Facebook page, so by all means you could pop any photos on there. It'd be lovely to see them. He'll pop a link in the description down below. Don't forget you can subscribe. There are links on the page here, and it's all for free. Next time you see me, I will be making one of these, a Christmas pudding, and if you're lucky, I'll be wearing this. It's a little bit wonky, so we'll see. It seems to be a bit old now, but ciao ciao for now, and I hope you enjoyed the cake.